Welcome back to another edition of the Here We Go podcast. It's been a while since I've actually done this, so let's get rolling into this right now. A couple things that I had on my mind lately here is number one, the TJ Watt contract extension conversation. I feel has gotten a little out of control. It's a really big divide among the fan base. It seems like it's a pretty controversial topic, and I'm not sure I fully understand why the topic is so controversial. This is a guy that, yes, he's he's already 30 years old. He's a guy who has been at the top of his game for quite a long time. And I understand the argument that at some point there's got to be a fall off. But I'm not sure we're there yet. And it's really easy to point out that the sack totals last year weren't where they should have been, weren't where they needed to be, and we're nowhere near what he's done in the past. But is that really an indictment on TJ Watt? Or is that an indictment on the coaching staff and the positions they put him in? Because in my opinion, I think the conversation really should be around the fact that this guy was continuously double teamed or chipped all season long. He was chipped at the highest rate in the NFL. He was double teamed just about every play where there wasn't a chip. And I just don't understand why the coaching staff consistently insists on rushing four guys and allowing this guy to just be double teamed or chipped every single play. It makes no sense to me. And that's really kind of just looking at Mike Tomlin and saying, why in the world are we going to continuously let this guy go through the same things over and over again, and we're not going to make the offense adjust? I don't think that Mike Tomlin did anything to help TJ Watt all of last season. He really wanted the guys like Cam Hayward and Alex Highsmith to step up in his absence, guys like Keanu Benton to step up. And even if TJ is going to get doubled, he thought, hey, we're just going to make him pay with the other guys running across the line who's rushing in this play. But the problem is most of the guys rushing just weren't winning nearly as enough as what they should have. And Cam Hayward had a nice season. Don't get me wrong. Alex Highsmith had a nice season. Don't get me wrong. But they weren't affecting the game enough to make teams move away from doing what they were going to do to TJ Watt, because why would they? If you're getting half a sack a game, basically, or a sack a game, that's not enough to affect what the team's going to do offensively when you're talking about shutting down the best pass rusher in the league year in and year out. In my opinion, I agreed with Adam's earlier point. Look at the stats and the records when TJ's not on the field. TJ Watt affects the game in a way that doesn't just have to show on the stat line. And it does show on the stat line, which is the crazy part, which is why I'm so confused by a fan base saying, okay, well, this guy he didn't lead the league in sacks. He wasn't the best player on the field at all times. He was. That's why the offense is adjusted the way that they did. He was the best player on the field almost game in and game out. That's why they tried to play the style that they did. That's why they made sure there was two guys assigned to him at all times in some form or fashion. And people are saying he lost a step. I don't agree that he lost a step. It's just he is built on speed, not power. Guys like Myles Garrett, they can beat a double team easier than TJ Watt. TJ's a much smaller guy. First of all, there's a large difference in weight between Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. TJ is not a defensive end. And I think in Pittsburgh, a lot of times we forget that. He's an outside linebacker. Of course, he's an edge rusher. His primary role is to be on the edge and rush the passer. That's just the way the 3-4 has always been built. But I also think that it's a little bit unfair to judge this guy when an offense is dedicating so much of their resources to him and the coaching staff isn't helping him. If you do something simple, like say, okay, Peyton Wilson, you're lined up right behind TJ, we're just going to send you. And they're either going to pick up the blitz or they're going to double team TJ Watt. You have a choice. Something that simplistic can make an offense hesitate for a second, and TJ only needs a second to win every snap. So I just don't understand why it felt like we didn't even attempt to do anything different on the defensive side of the ball to help this guy out. Send 5 guys more frequently, overload the side that TJ Watt has. And I think that's just going to be the way. Yeah, well, I mean, it's very possible. Yeah, he should be motivated. And I think he is motivated. I don't know how much of the conversation should be believed around the fact that like he's upset at the DK Metcalf contract. Should that play into this? Should that not play into this? I personally don't think that that should be a factor. If you're a guy at his age who's still playing at the level that he's playing at, you should want better players to be here. And I understand when people make the argument that the organization needs to pay their guys and they need to take care of their guys first. And I agree they probably should have extended TJ Watt last year, even if it was a year early. But I just don't think that like he should look at a DK Metcalf trade situation and say, oh, DK got all this money. You know, I'm definitely going to get mine. And I should be salty about that. TJ's going to get his either way. And I think what it boils down to is he is going to get the contract. It's probably going to come in somewhere around $40 million. Is it going to be $1 over what Myles Garrett got? Is it going to be $1 short of what Myles Garrett got? It doesn't really matter. But the argument against paying him is kind of insane. You're talking about a guy who affects the game in more than just sacks. And I think the fan base forgets that he affects the game in way more ways than just his sack totals. He's fantastic against the run. He led the league in forced fumbles last season. He led the league in fumble recoveries last season. He's a guy who affects the game in every form and fashion that he possibly can. I mean, he's had interceptions. He's created so much attention around a guy that it should make the other guys on the defense better. And I think it's more of a detriment against a guy like Alex Highsmith. How are you not racking up more sacks when this guy's getting so much attention? And it helps a guy like Nick Herbig when he's coming in relief because the attention's not on him. He gets to go one-on-one, and Herbig's as quick off the ball as anybody in the NFL. He's probably the quickest off the ball out of anybody in the NFL. And I agree with this. I mean, I still have always thought he's the best defensive player in football. He's one of the best total all-around players in all of football. He just affects the game in way more ways. And I don't know that I've ever seen a defensive player when the lights are brightest, you need to play more than anything. And an offense has been sputtering an entire game. And he knows he has to take over. He shows up. I saw people making arguments. This guy doesn't show up in the playoffs. He doesn't show up late in the season. He's hurt all the time. And like, guys, this is football. Injuries happen. Yeah, TJ could be considered slightly injury prone, but it's not dramatic. I think the fan base makes it more dramatic than what it actually is. I think that actually, in my opinion, TJ Watt is the best player in the world at what he does because he can affect the game in so many different ways. You can take the best corners in the league. They can't affect the game in the ways that TJ Watt does. You can take the best safety in football, the best linebacker, the best defensive end, the best interior defensive lineman. Very few guys affect the game in so many different forms and fashion like what TJ Watt does. And Adam, I again, big players make big plays, plain and simple. And he does. And he does it time and time again. And he's bailed this offense out way, way more often than not. I think that the biggest argument is that so many people in this city just have short-term memory. We look at a stat sheet. We look at the fact that, oh, well, we haven't won a playoff game with TJ Watt. That's true. But is it really TJ Watt's fault? Or is it the other 21 guys on offense and defense that aren't putting their weight into the game the same way that TJ Watt is? Well, his stats aren't good enough. Well, yes, because the best teams in the NFL are going to make sure they shut down the best player in the NFL. Someone else has to help. The coaching staff has to come up with a game plan to not allow that to happen. Bill Belichick spent his entire career making sure the best player on the offense did not take over a game. The best player on defense did not take over a game. He's considered one of the greatest coaches of all time for exactly that reason. But our coaching staff never adjusts to those things. They don't do anything to help this guy out. And I think that's the indictment on Mike Tomlin and why his play it safe mentality has hurt TJ Watt as much as anything else. It's got to be a stain on this guy's legacy. You have to take chances. You know, we used to be the Blitzburg Steelers. Well, now, do we ever? How often do we blitz compared to other teams in the league? It's nowhere near at the same level. I just think that the TJ Watt lack of production from last season is getting blown way out of proportion. I think that TJ Watt is worth every penny of $40 million. And if you want a different argument, we just started to get the hint of what the Aaron Rodgers contract is going to be. And I'm going to talk about Aaron Rodgers in this as well. But it's not extensive. It's not going to be that much money. You can afford TJ Watt at $40 million. Not only that, but Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old. He's not going to be here long. It's a foregone conclusion you're going to draft a rookie quarterback to be the heir apparent next season. So it's pretty safe to say you have a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract that's not going to make a ton of money. You can still afford TJ Watt. This does not have to be a 4 and 5 year contract. And I don't think the Steelers are even thinking of doing that. A 3-year contract is not going to break the bank, especially when the cap is supposed to go up pretty significantly over the next 2 years. Like, if you follow the projections at all, you could see that this cap contract is supposed to continue to go up. So I don't understand the argument of, oh, well, the coaching staff doesn't know how to use TJ, so we're going to get rid of him. He had one down year, and it's for TJ. He still was like, what, 6, 8, or tied. He was tied for 8th, I think, in the NFL in sacks. Tied for 8th isn't that bad. It's TJ Watt being bad. But all things considered, it's not that bad. Is it top of the league money worth? Yeah, you can make an argument. Sure, it's not. But when you factor in all of the other things, the way he plays the run, the way that he forces fumbles, the way that he gets interceptions, the way that he recovers fumbles, I mean, this guy just affects the game in a way that nobody else does. And he can turn it on like a light switch. And I've not seen very many guys over the course of my lifetime that can turn it on the way that TJ Watt can turn it on. When he knows he needs it, he's going to get it more often than not. And that's, to me, what separates him from so many other players in the league. Max Crosby's a great player, probably one of the most underrated players in the league, even when he is getting recognition. That guy, his motor's insane. He can't turn it on the same way that TJ Watt does. Myles Garrett, he's a great player in his own right. We hate the Browns, but you still got to give great players their recognition. He can't turn it on like TJ Watt does. He can't finish like TJ Watt does. I mean, look at the numbers. The numbers speak for themselves. So I don't quite understand the argument against paying TJ Watt $40 million because I think he's well worth $40 million right now. He's earned this contract probably 3 times over. And to be honest with you, when a guy signs like a 4-year deal and he's outplayed that 4-year deal, there's a lot of teams that would just redo the deal now. The Pittsburgh Steelers just don't operate that way. So You can say it's nostalgia. You can say it's, the old ways of doing things. But the fact of the matter is they waited to pay this guy. He was worth this before. We waited until Myles Garrett set the market. The Browns did what the Browns always do. They overpay for somebody and they give him more money than what he deserves. And we waited and allowed it to happen. And now we're just playing catch up. Well, guess what? When you let another team set the market at the position where you're about to pay your best player, you suffer the consequences. And that's exactly what we're looking at right now is whether you like it as a fan base. The market just got set by Myles Garrett, and it says that TJ Watt is worth $40 million. Myles Garrett's only a year younger. It's not like there's a massive gap in age. And I think if they wait a little bit longer, this is going to get much worse. Because if Micah Parsons gets paid, then TJ Watt's going to have his asking price going up. Because Micah Parsons is worth, he's the youngest of the three right now, and he's worth it. He's worth every penny of whatever Dallas is going to give him. And whatever that price tag becomes, now all of a sudden you have to make the argument that TJ Watt's worth it as well. He definitely got Bud Dupree paid. There's no doubt about that. I think Alex is a good standalone pass rusher in his own right. I think he's a guy that you probably could say not just benefits from TJ Watt. He does. Everybody's going to when you're playing across a guy that's that great. Alex has his own skill set as well. I think Alex is a good edge rusher. My only criticism of Alex Highsmith is that I think he could finish a little bit more frequently than he does. He gets very close, and he actually probably is more in the Myles Garrett conversation as he gets close to these sacks, as PFF likes to point out, but maybe doesn't finish quite as much as I would like him to. But Alex he was definitely a better player than Bud Dupree. I think if you take Alex Highsmith out of this defense and you put him into another defense, he doesn't become a backup within a year after a massive contract. I think that's kind of the difference between the two guys, but probably an argument for another day. So another thing that I really wanted to talk about is the Aaron Rodgers effect and what that means to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think this goes beyond just wins and losses. I've been going on with the Steelers Sanctuary guys pretty frequently here lately, at least once to twice a week. And we did a game-by-game prediction of before the news dropped about Aaron Rodgers. And we talked about like wins and losses, based on the schedule. We went game by game through it, and we said, I think there's a 3-game split is basically what I called it. I had us at 8-9 with Mason Rudolph. I had us with 11 wins with Aaron Rodgers. That's pretty significant in the NFL. 3 games is a pretty significant swing, in my opinion. And I think it's something that's not really a stretch, but it goes way beyond just the wins and losses of this thing. I think it's something that you can look at and say that this is a guy who has spent his career elevating other players. That's not something that I think you could argue about with Russell Wilson. That's not something you could argue for Justin Fields in any way. You definitely can't argue that with Mason Rudolph. This is a guy who's going to be by far the best quarterback we've had on this roster since Ben Roethlisberger. And not even the Ben Roethlisberger at the end of his career, but you're probably looking back to 2018, 2019, 2018 Ben Roethlisberger. Pre-elbow injury. Aaron Rodgers still has a ton of arm talent. And I posted this earlier on X, and I wholeheartedly believe this. I think this is finally the guy that's going to tell us a ton about Pat Freiermuth. I think he's finally going to open up and unlock Pat Freiermuth. And I'm so excited to see what this guy actually can do, because we saw glimpses of what Pat Freiermuth could potentially be as a rookie when he and Ben Roethlisberger were together. but it's been really intermittent. He's had nice seasons as a tight end. It's not been great. There's been an argument: is this guy a top 10 tight end? Should he be paid like a top 10 tight end? And Aaron Rodgers, by all reporting, is going to be here pretty much according to his word. I mean, he said he'd play for $10 million, and the reports are somewhere between $10 and $11 million right now. That's with incentives and everything. So right now, Aaron's sticking to his word and what he had said on the Pat McAfee show. And I think that nobody on this offense, including DK Metcalf, benefits from this signing more than a guy like Pat Freiermuth. You could probably also make an argument, even though there's still some, conversations going on with other tight ends in the league, that Darnell Washington is going to benefit from this. But I'm really, really excited about the Pat Freiermuth effect of this. And I think this is finally an opportunity to see, for the naysayers who say we massively overpaid Pat Freiermuth. He's not a top 10 tight end. They don't believe in him. They don't think this guy is a very good tight end. I'm not in that crowd. I think Pat Freiermuth, he may not be the most athletic guy. He's pretty sure-handed. I know people are going to throw like a couple late game drops last season in my face on this. But for the most part, this guy's been as reliable as anybody we've had since Heath Miller. He's a really good tight end. And I think he actually, what was it, 3 years ago? He led or 2 years. 2 years ago, I think he led our team in yak. So he's so unathletic that he led the team in yak. It sounds like a bum, right? You shouldn't pay that guy as top 10 tight end money. But he finally could get to be utilized in the middle of the field. This is where this guy does his best work. And we don't ever use him there. Mike Tomlin's always been scared to death to throw the ball across the middle of the field, but not with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to unlock a side of this offense. And Arthur Smith specifically likes to utilize this part of this offense. Aaron can run these things. Not only this, but I've made this point. It's going to be a run-first team, no matter what. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who the quarterback was. It was always going to be a run-first team. Aaron's going to be here. It's still going to be a run-first team. Which is why I think Caleb Johnson's going to have a monster year, but that's a different conversation for another day. Nobody runs play-action fake better than Aaron Rodgers. In the history of the NFL, you cannot convince me there's a quarterback who has a better play-action fake than Aaron Rodgers. Well, when you run that play-action fake, that's a great opportunity to slip the tight end back behind the linebackers down the field. And that's kind of actually what back to Adam's point, what he brought up just a second ago, slipping that tight end behind the linebackers is why he killed Cincinnati, because we were actually trying to do some of those things when Najee Harris was running really well that day. I think Pat Freiermuth has a chance to have a career year as long as the marriage between Aaron Rodgers, Arthur Smith, and Mike Tomlin allows this thing to happen. That's going to be the biggest factor out of all of this. I do agree with this. I think they need to get – I think we do need to get a really, really good route running wide receiver. And I'd be shocked if we don't at this point. I'd be shocked. You could make the argument that they want to wait and see what happens with Roman Wilson. Does he develop into a quality wide receiver too that the team really likes? I wouldn't do that right now. I've made that clear in the past. I think it's a lot to ask of Roman Wilson in his first real full season in the NFL to move to a position that he's never played. He's never been a Z receiver ever in his entire life. He's always been a slot guy. I'm pretty sure even dating back into high school, he was still kind of a slot guy. So I think that's a tall task to say, like, yeah, let's go ahead and move this guy and let's see what he can do out there. You can try to work with him and let him develop into that, but I just don't think that you're ready for that right now. If you're Roman Wilson, like, that's probably next season if you want to do that. But you really could be waiting on, more specifically, the Green Bay Packers. They have an abundance of wide receivers right now. Someone's getting cut from that room. They're not going to want to cut a really good player. They're going to want to get some value for this player. So that's an easy trade target for the Pittsburgh Steelers to go after a Romeo Doubs or a Dontavian Wicks. I know those are the two names that get thrown out quite a lot. I I think if I'm the Steelers, I would even ask about Christian Watson. I know a lot of people were bringing up Dobbs and Wicks because they think Christian Watson's off the table. He's going to be hurt. He's going to miss a lot of time this season. He's probably going to miss at least 6 games. I think if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I saw a real connection built between Aaron Rodgers and Christian Watson. I'm going to ask what their price tag is. This is a guy who's an explosive guy when healthy. If you believe that Roman Wilson can be a Z receiver at some point, I think that I'd be comfortable trying to let him go through the first 6 games of this season because, well, to be honest with you, we have a bye so early. It's only the first 5 games of the season that you'd be missing Christian Watson. So can this guy get you through 5 games? Can Robert Woods even just get you through 5 games before you bring in Christian Watson off IR? I would absolutely be asking Green Bay what their interest is in keeping this guy and what their price tag would be for him. That's another guy you could bring in that's a bigger receiver. He's more slender, but he's tall. He's lanky. He can run really well. He's been explosive when he's been on the field. Aaron seemed to like him. I would make some phone calls to Green Bay, not maybe for Dontavian Wicks or Romeo Dobbs specifically, but I would ask what the price tag is for Christian Watson if it's me. Another team that's going to get brought up a lot, the Indianapolis Colts, is another team that's going to have a lot of guys that are available. I think that Alec Pierce is going to be a guy who he's in a crowded room. They're going to have 3 guys that probably are going to be their primary players, which leaves one odd man out. Alec Pierce is going to be probably that guy if Adonai Mitchell really takes that step forward. That's another one I'd probably call about too because he's a nice player, and I think he's an upgrade over anything that we have in the room right now. He can play on the outside. He's a bigger physical guy, fits the system probably better than most of these guys. I would actually much rather have Alec Pierce than I think bringing in Gabe Davis, for example. Keenan Allen's getting brought up quite a lot. Keenan Allen, to me, when was the last time this guy played in the outside? I mean, I think it was like clear back to maybe his 2nd or 3rd season in the league. This guy's been in the league forever. Can he play it? Probably, sure, but is he going to be very good at it? Like, I don't know. He's still a pretty good route runner, but I honestly, I still think I'd rather have Amari Cooper. At least this guy's been an outside receiver his entire career. He's still a good route runner. I think that, yeah, he had a really, really bad down year last year, but I'm just not sure he's the worst option on the table. Like I would rather have him than Robert Woods. I think I would rather have him than Keenan Allen, although they're probably pretty close. I don't know. I just feel like this team probably needs to find a splash, wherever that splash might be within the receiver market. I just think they need to find a splash play. Yeah, I'm very conflicted on Kyle Pitts. Like, this guy was supposed to be like the second coming of Travis Kelce, and if you look at him and Jonnu Smith, first of all, when they were playing together in Atlanta, Jonnu Smith got more targets. I think he had more yardage and more touchdowns, which then you got to, and it was within Arthur Smith's offense. So, like, we're going to put some things into perspective on this. Kyle Pitts is an exceptional athlete at the position, but what is falling short year in and year out that this guy has never reached his potential? I mean, this guy's never had 1,000 yards. I don't think he's ever had more than, is it 760 yards? Was that his top? I think if anybody could look that up, that'd be great. But I think 760 yards might have been the best season he's ever put up as a tight end. For everybody bashing Pat Freiermuth, he's top 700 yards last season. Just throwing that out there. So is Kyle Pitts really this exceptional tight end, exceptional athlete, exceptional receiver? You have to try to make an argument that he's been misused, and I'm not sure that's the case. There's something more to the situation with Kyle Pitts, in my opinion. Johnny Smith is a really nice athlete, and I'm not completely opposed to bringing in one of these more receiving threat type tight ends. I'm interested to see how the team would utilize it if you brought in Johnny Smith or Kyle Pitts, because those are kind of the two guys being talked about right now. If you're going to play those two guys with Pat Freiermuth, you're eliminating the run game because none of those guys can block. They're just bad. And I probably make the argument that Pat Freiermuth would be the best blocker of the three. You could definitely incorporate it, though. We saw Johnny Smith and Kyle Pitts play together in Atlanta, and there was targets to go around between the two guys within an Arthur Smith-style offense. I don't think that's going to be the problem. But, I'm also not opposed to bringing in a tight end right now because you need playmakers. If you're going to bring in Aaron Rodgers, we went through this whole charade, this entire offseason of just unknown. You've got to assume that you're trying to go all in to win. Make some deals. Bring some playmakers in. Caleb Johnson is a clear upgrade from Najee Harris within the Arthur Smith offense. I think Caleb Johnson's going to have a monster season. I'll be honest. I told a friend of mine today, I think Caleb Johnson, if the team lets him, I think he should. I don't know that he will. I think he should get 70% of the carries. It should be a 70-30 split basically between him and Jaylen Warren. I think this dude should go over 1,500 yards, or at least go for 1,500 yards this season. I wholeheartedly believe that. I think he's that good. I think he's that talented. I think that he is just tailor-made for this system. He's going to be a breakout player who everyone slept on. And when you go back, and I did this just before the draft, and I was kind of down on him, but if you go back and watch, the 40 looks terrible, 4, 5, 7, not what you want to see. That's not game-breaking speed. That's not Najee Harris speed. But if you watch the tape, this dude is breaking long runs left and right at Iowa and gets stacked boxes. Guess what Pittsburgh's going to see? We're going to see some stacked boxes. He saw 8-man fronts 53% of the time. The next closest player was 36% of the time. I mean, he had a massive disadvantage as a runner. Massive disadvantage. And I agree with this too. This is why you bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers. He's so knowledgeable and he's so just understand. I think there's the three smartest quarterbacks that I can remember playing the game of football. Number 1 was Peyton Manning, and I don't think that one's very close. Number 2, you got to put Tom Brady on that list. Aaron Rodgers is 3. And it just happens that they all kind of played in that same era, but they understood defense unlike anybody else. So he could, Tomlin needs to give him full reign to do whatever he wants at the line of scrimmage. And if Arthur Smith isn't on board with that, which I don't know what side of the argument I believe with the Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson not being allowed to argue, but whatever side of that you're on, Arthur Smith has to get on the ship or just get out of town. This isn't a guy who's not intelligent. Aaron Rodgers is one of the smartest quarterbacks I've ever seen. So I think you need more playmakers. Absolutely. The wide receiver, I think, is more important than tight end. I think we saw that there is a formula for Darnell Washington to find success as a tight end in this league. It's not going to be to run exceptional crisp routes. That's not who he is. Yeah, he's dropped some weight. He's under 300 pounds now. There's talk that he's looking better, but I don't care about all that. Like, this is OTAs. Like, they're saying everyone looks better right now. They just want to give the fan base something to look forward to. However, the thing that we saw actually in practice work is just kind of dumping this dude the ball and letting him run over a few people and like lunge forward with this damn 7.5 frame that he's got. Not literally, but I'm exaggerating. Let him go forward. He's huge. No DB wants to be out there in front of this guy. So there is a spot for him to actually make an impact in the game. And I really think that's probably what they need to do. So I think that number one, we got to see more of Pat Freiermuth. And this is going to unlock that. I think that number two, we've got to see another playmaker added, hopefully at wide receiver, but I'm not opposed to the tight end thing either. You've just got to surround this guy with more playmakers. If we're going to go all in, you're going to bring Aaron Rodgers in here. Aaron still has exceptional arm talent, like I've mentioned before. You're kind of pushing the envelope where you're getting to where, is this Cam Hayward's last shot? Is this Minka Fitzpatrick's last shot? Is this TJ Watt's last shot? Is this the last season we see the three of them together? Next season, Minka's not exactly guaranteed to be on the roster, and we're already talking about TJ Watt's contract extension, which is what I opened the show with. We need to figure this thing out. Go all in. If you have to overpay for a guy, you've got 12 draft picks in the next class. As long as you don't give up the first, which is going to be your quarterback next season, you can probably make other deals to get back into the position that you lost anyway. So I'm okay going all in on this season. Are we likely to win the Super Bowl? Probably not. Are we a team that should be winning a playoff game at this point? Yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers gives you that opportunity. We should look at, we can be a team that wins a playoff game, which is a step up from where we've been. It's a huge step in the NFL, if we're being perfectly honest. Can we compete with the Bills? Can we compete with the Chiefs, the Ravens? We'll see. We got to make some more moves in order for that to happen. So that's kind of how I'm going to end this little rant of mine tonight. I think that this team has gotten significantly better. I want to cover more of the roster position groups and things like that here in the near future, and kind of talk about how I feel exactly they've improved overall. But I think the Aaron Rodgers addition is going to make a ton of sense as the season goes on. I don't think this is a guy that's falling off the cliff yet. You can see the arm talent still there. Doesn't look like Ben at the end of his career. Doesn't look like Matt Ryan at the end of his career. Some of the guys we've seen more recently. It looks totally different. It looks like a guy recovering from an Achilles. I'm not going to throw Kirk Cousins quite into that conversation yet, but he's probably more close to Ben and Matt Ryan than where Aaron Rodgers is right now. So I think we dodged a huge bullet on that one. Mason Rudolph. Sorry, guys. If you're a Mason Rudolph fan, this asking for one more shot from a guy who's had numerous shots to make his impact on the NFL is insane. He had 3 good games, and they weren't even good. They were just okay. They were fine. You've got a much better upgrade right now with Aaron Rodgers, so enjoy it. I think it adds 3 more wins to our season total, and I hope we have something to really look forward to as we go on as Steeler fans. That was it for tonight. As always, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Love the comments section. Adam, you were very, very interactive. I really appreciate that. So I'll talk to you later.